Monster? Freak? Imagine how you feel if a crowd called you this over and over again. In the past, a lot of money was made on the back of their disability, deformity, or illness. They were shown like trophies and locked up like animals, laughed and scolded by the crowd in the circus. Today, we look at the tragic stories and latest photos of the so-called circus freaks of the past, who were just people, who deserved better. Let's watch the video together and give them a tribute. Meet Bill Dirks, the man with 2 noses and 3 eyes. Bill was born on a farm in Alabama with 2 noses and a hair lip. Even worse, his eyes were sealed and required an operation to be opened. The disfigured boy was deprived of an education. At 14, Dirks left the farm and exhibited his flawed face in a single O show. He became known as the man with 2 noses and 3 eyes. In the 1960s, he earned as much as $100 a week, plus a cash bonus. He appeared at Hubert's Museum in New York. He married Mildred, the alligator-skinned woman, later in life. They accepted each other for what they were. That's love, real love. Dominique Castagna, born in 1869 in Saligny, France, was a frail and stunted figure, standing just 4'9" and weighing only 50 pounds. His gaunt face and buggy eyes made him a social outcast, leaving him lonely and misunderstood. Despite trying to live a normal life, his appearance left him with few options. A co-worker, Cruzel, convinced him to turn public stares into profit, leading Castagna to reluctantly enter show business as the Mummy in 1896. Though he despised being a spectacle, Cruzel's friendship brought Castagna rare joy and acceptance. However, Castagna struggled deeply with his isolation and unhappiness. When Cruzel left show business to marry, Castagna was overcome by despair. In 1905, he ended his life in a hotel in Liège, leaving behind a story of resilience, fleeting friendship, and profound loneliness. This is Tom Ton, an obese young man in boots, stockings, shorts, and a smock. He appears to have been born in Theodora, Valenzuela, Mexico in 1895, making a career as a circus sideshow or freak show named Fat Man, ultimately weighing 1,600 pounds. He appears to have died from myocarditis, dropsy, and suffocation of the heart in 1926. Freak shows were part of a heritage dating from the Victorian and Edwardian times, which were very popular, traveling around the country, putting on shows in local theaters or as part of a circus. In 1948, Stanley Kubri, then a 19-year-old photographer, captured a striking photograph of a circus sideshow performer. The man, whose name remains unknown, has 2 piercings on his nipples where he hung 2 huge rings for shows. He was part of a fading era of American traveling circuses. Dressed in a shabby coat and worn bowler hat, his face bore a mix that reflected the hard life of sideshow entertainers. The performer's act is undocumented, but sideshows of the time often included feats of endurance, unusual physical traits, or illusions designed to amaze the crowds. This haunting postcard from 1885 captures the image of a young girl, gracefully seated on a swing, despite having no legs. Dressed in period clothing with her hair neatly styled, ties the girl to the world of circus freak shows, a realm where physical differences were transformed into public spectacles. Circuses and traveling freak shows were booming in the late 19th century, showcasing individuals with unique physical conditions as wonders of the world. The girl, with her expressions, has been called the Limbless Wonder. Millie and Christine McCoy were conjoined twins who toured the world as the Carolina Twins and the Two-Headed Nightingale during the 19th century. They were joined at the pelvis and the lower spine, but they each had 2 arms, 2 legs, and their own vital organs. Monimia, their mother, showed her children to their owner Jabez McKay, who quickly took the opportunity to make money off of their anatomy. The twins could never be workers for him, so McKay sold the twins and their mother to South Carolinian showman John Purvis for $1,000 when the children were just 8 months old. Purvis began putting Millie and Christine on display immediately and gave McKay a percentage of the profits. Purvis sold the twins within 2 years, however, to Brower, a showman funded by merchant Joseph Pearson Smith. As the only African-American conjoined twins of their time, they received attention from royalty, doctors, and audiences alike, while being poked at for their entire lives. Their tragic end, however, may be the most heart-wrenching part of their story. Frankie Saludo, a beloved figure in circus history, spent decades enchanting audiences as a clown with the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. Born with dwarfism, Frankie turned what some might see as a limitation into a platform for joy and artistry, performing for hundreds of thousands of people over his long and illustrious career. Known for his quick wit, physical comedy, and larger-than-life personality, Frankie became a staple under the big top. His acts often combined slapstick humor with a deep emotional connection to his audience, reminding people that laughter knows no bounds. Beyond the grease paint and oversized shoes, he was admired by his peers for his kindness, professionalism, and dedication to the craft of clowning. Frank Lentini, an Italian showman born in 1889, became one of the most famous sideshow performers of his time, earning the nickname the Three-Legged Man. Born in Sicily with a rare condition called dipygus, Frank had 3 fully functional legs, 4 feet where one is growing from his 3rd leg, and 2 sets of genitals, a fact that added to the shock and curiosity surrounding him. At the age of 9, Frank moved to the United States and began his career in the circus and sideshow circuit, where he captivated audiences with his unique anatomy. Unlike many sideshow acts of the era, Frank's charm and wit made him a star beyond mere physical spectacle. Lentini performed with major troupes like the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, where he demonstrated feats like kicking a soccer ball with his 3rd leg. Despite the sensationalism, Frank lived a relatively normal life off stage, marrying and fathering 4 children. This image, likely from the mid-20th century, captures the startling reality of circus life. A small girl, balanced on the nose of a performing seal, was said to be part of an old traveling circus act. Her name has been lost to history, but stories suggest a tragic background. Some claim her mother, impoverished and desperate, sold her to the circus to survive. Circus folklore often speaks of children like her, raised not in homes, but under the glare of stage lights, surrounded by clowns, acrobats, and exotic animals. While she may have dazzled audiences with her charm and balance, her personal story remains in sadness. Her fate, like many child performers of the era, remains unknown, leaving behind only haunting images like this. In 1926, Hollywood witnessed an unusual duo, Jacques Lerner, a renowned stage actor famed for his convincing monkey impersonations, and Acker, a celebrated chimpanzee comedian. Dubbed the Monkey Man and Monkey, this partnership highlighted the boundary-blurring artistry of early 20th century entertainment. Lerner's play that captured audiences with its mix of humor was preparing to bring his iconic role to the silver screen under Fox Films. To perfect his performance, he turned to Acker, Hollywood's go-to chimpanzee for comedic roles. In a unique twist, the actor studied the chimpanzee for hours daily, mimicking his movements, expressions, and mannerisms to enhance his transformation. Prince Randan, often called the living torso, was born in British Guiana with tetra amelia syndrome, leaving him without arms or legs. Despite this, he lived a full and self-sufficient life, known for his ability to shave, paint, and even roll cigarettes with his lips. In Freaks, he delivers one of the film's most memorable moments, lighting a cigarette without assistance, a quiet display of his remarkable capabilities. Johnny Eck, the half-boy, was born with sacral agenesis, leaving his upper body fully developed but his lower half missing. Ultimately, their life reflected the harsh realities of a world fascinated by their differences, but blind to their humanity. In an ancient circus show, Two men, draped in thick facial and body hair, were put on display as the Wild Men, a chilling glimpse into the darker side of sideshow history. Their names have been lost to time, but their tragic story remains. For years, they were showcased under the harsh lights of the big top, their bodies and faces covered in thick, untamed hair, something beyond human control. The circus crowds marveled at them, but the men, born with a rare condition known as hypertrichosis, lived a life of isolation and exploitation. The fame and attention came at a price. Their humanity was often overshadowed by the spectacle of their appearances. One night, the circus troupe moved from town, never offering its performers stability. The men fell ill, weakened by years of harsh conditions and inadequate care. Then their names faded, their lives forgotten, leaving behind only the haunting memory of a time when human beings were treated as curiosities for the entertainment of others. Cordelia Old Stumpy is a character from the world of sideshow performances, known for her distinctive physical condition. Often referred to by the nickname Old Stumpy, she was a performer in the early 20th century circus and freak shows. Cordelia's condition, known as stump limb deformity, left her with severely shortened limbs, making her a curiosity among the public who flocked to see her as part of the sideshow attraction. Despite her condition, Cordelia became famous for her strength. However, like many performers in the sideshow industry, her life was filled with both exploitation and admiration. Her physical deformities, which made her a star attraction, were also the source of deep personal struggles as she faced mockery and objectification. Now, this is a very interesting image. In Topeka, Kansas, the legend of the Blue Albina haunts Rochester Cemetery. A woman with almost no melanin, giving her skin a bluish tint, lived near the cemetery in the early 1900s. Discriminated against for her appearance, she rarely spoke and was seen mostly at night walking her large dog. After her death in 1964, her grave was vandalized and her body removed, but her restless spirit lingered. In 2013, a couple, and later a boy and his mother, reported encounters with her ghost, said to scratch, suffocate, and vanish into the cemetery. Her ghost, often seen tending graves or walking her ghost dog, remains a chilling reminder of her painful life. Here, the elephant stands silently, its eyes filled with tears, the sadness in its expression barely hidden. Its ears roughly cut, and even hung a swing through its ears. A lady circus performer, dressed in bright, flashy attire, laughs and entertains the audience. She swings effortlessly, her smile wide and her laughter loud, oblivious to the quiet suffering around her. The audience claps and cheers, unaware of the pain behind the performance. The elephant's tear-streaked face stands in stark contrast to the joyful facade of the act. A daring lady circus performer sitting at the center, preparing for her infamous act. With a deep breath, she raises the gleaming sword to her lips, the metal reflecting the bright lights above. Her eyes are focused, her hands steady, as she opens her mouth wide and slowly begins to swallow the blade. The crowd holds its breath in anticipation, their eyes fixed on the act of impossible bravery. As the sword slides deeper into her throat, there's a tension in the air, a mix of awe and unease. The audience cheers, oblivious to the danger, as Lucky Hell swallows the sword with practiced precision. These were some of the shows performed by these freak shows, and the one who is performing will always end up being tragic, or died for fame, or for money. Their life had been a living hell at that time. Jack Earl, born Jacob Reuben Ehrlich on July 3, 1906, in Denver, Colorado, was a towering figure at 7 feet 6.5 inches tall. Born weighing only 4 pounds, he grew rapidly, reaching over 6 feet by age 10. Discovered by Hollywood, he acted in over 50 silent films before a pituitary tumor altered his life, slowing his growth and restoring his vision. Earl then joined the Ringling Brothers Circus, where he performed for 14 years. After retiring, he became a successful traveling salesman and pursued creative passions like painting and photography. He died on July 18, 1952, at age 47 from kidney failure, leaving behind a legacy as a beloved, friendly giant. But all his life, he was deliberately in vain. Willie and George, initially billed as the white Ecuadorian cannibals Echo and Iko, struggled to gain recognition under the harsh hands of their circus agents, who cycled through bizarre titles like the Sheep-Headed Men and Ambassadors from Mars. Despite their fame with Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey in the 1920s and performing at Madison Square Garden, their lives were marred by exploitation. In 1927, they were finally freed when their mother rediscovered them, but the damage had already been done. After a long legal battle, they were awarded a small monthly wage, but it came too late to undo the years of captivity and mistreatment. Although they found greater success performing worldwide in the 1930s through the 1960s, the brothers never fully recovered from their traumatic past. Despite their newfound fame and wealth, they remained haunted by the years they spent as spectacles, their identities stripped away, and their lives forever overshadowed by the circus that once controlled them. The pig-faced Lady of Manchester was born with a severe facial deformity, leading to her being exploited in freak shows during the late 1700s. Discovered by a circus owner, she was locked in a cage and paraded before crowds as a grotesque spectacle. Despite her humanity, she was never allowed to speak or tell her story, her life reduced to mere entertainment. As she grew older, the cruelty wore on her, and she became silent, isolated in her suffering. She died forgotten, her name overshadowed by the label of freak that defined her life. In this haunting 1949 photograph by Nina Lean, we glimpse the world of Sarasota, Florida, the home of the American circus. The circus girls, with their rebellious spirit and bold personalities, seem to rule the ring. But behind their vibrant costumes and defiant smiles lies a darker story. Among them, an elephant, once majestic and wild, now reduced to a circus attraction, stands nearby, its eyes reflecting a sadness unseen by the cheering crowds. These performers, caught in the glow of their fleeting fame, are trapped in a cycle of exploitation, much like the elephant. The bright lights of the circus mask a life of confinement and pain, where freedom is a distant memory. Their world, full of energy and charm, is ultimately one of sacrifice, a tragic escape from a life they never chose. In the early 1900s, the freak show circus exhibits often pushed the boundaries of what was considered entertainment, exploiting both physical anomalies and cultural differences. One such exhibit involved a young African child, draped in leopard skin, displayed as part of the spectacle. The child was presented in a manner that dehumanized their heritage, often referred to with terms like kafir in a derogatory colonial context. The child's presence in the show was not about celebrating their culture, but rather using their appearance to shock and entertain audiences eager to witness the exotic. The child, dressed in a traditional frock and adorned with the skin of a leopard, was paraded as a living freak, part of a broader trend of using indigenous people and their cultural symbols for profit and entertainment. Behind the showmanship, however, was a tragic story of exploitation, as children and adults were coerced into these performances, stripped of their dignity in exchange for survival. In 1962, in Hamburg, Germany, Pablo Noel became the center of attention for performing one of the most dangerous stunts of his career, putting himself inside a tiger's head. The crowd watched in awe as Noel, known for his audacity, entered the cage with a large, fierce tiger. With only his bare hands and the trust he had built with the animal, Noel began his performance, calmly positioning himself inside the head of the tiger as if he were part of its natural domain. The stunt was meant to showcase his unparalleled courage, but also highlighted the dark side of circus performances. Behind the thrill was an unspoken truth. He was playing with death, relying not only on his skill, but on the unpredictable nature of the wild animal. As the audience cheered, they failed to see the silent danger lurking within the tiger's powerful gaze, as one wrong move could have ended in disaster. Horus Riddler, who became known as the Great Omi or the Zebra Man, was a British sideshow performer renowned for his extensive body modifications. Born into an upper-class family in 1882, Riddler initially pursued a military career, serving with distinction during World War I. However, after the war, he found himself in financial hardship and turned to the world of freak shows for a living. In a bid to stand out, he contacted the famous tattooist George Burchett and underwent over 150 hours of tattooing, covering his body with bold zebra-like stripes. This transformation was more than skin deep, it was a complete reinvention of his persona. Riddler's act became a sensation, touring England and France, and he further augmented his appearance with stretched earlobes and a large septum piercing. Boo Boo, the famous performing chimpanzee of the 1920s and 30s, became a star in the circus world for his incredible tricks and human-like gestures that charmed audiences across the country. Trained to perform a range of acts, from riding a bicycle to acting out small scenes, Boo Boo was adored by fans who flocked to circus tents to see his performances. However, behind the applause, Boo Boo's life was marked by a tragic reality. As with many animals in the circus during that era, his life was not one of joy, but of exploitation. His training was harsh, and he was kept in captivity, far from his natural habitat. Boo Boo's performances, while entertaining, were the result of years of forced labor and isolation. He was subjected to cruel methods of training, enduring physical punishment to ensure his tricks were flawless. In the end, Boo Boo's health began to deteriorate due to the intense conditions of his life in captivity. After years of performing, he was eventually retired, but the toll on his body and mind had already been taken. His tragic end came when he was diagnosed with illness, a victim of the very industry that once celebrated him. Sarah Bartman, known as Saartjie Bartman, was a South African Khoikhoi woman whose tragic life became a symbol of exploitation and racism. Born in 1789, she was taken to Europe under false pretenses by a British doctor, where she was displayed as the Hottentot Venus in freak shows, her large buttocks the focal point of cruel and degrading exhibitions. Crowds gathered in London and Paris to gawk at her body, reduced to nothing more than a spectacle for their amusement. Sarah's life was marked by profound humiliation. Stripped of her dignity and treated as a commodity, she endured relentless exploitation. After her death at just 26 in 1815, her body was dissected and put on display in a Paris museum, where her brain, skeleton, and sexual organs were kept until 1974. It wasn't until 2002 that her remains were finally repatriated and given a proper burial. Her story is a reminder of the cruelty of colonialism and the racial exploitation that stripped her of her humanity, turning her into a symbol of suffering and degradation.